You locked us up in here and threw the key to chess. You knew we'd wind.
I did a reading at the Ranelagh Arts Centre a few months ago, and it was a very crowded, dark room, and I took the poems out of my bag and kind of crowd surfed to the front. And then when I got to the front to read my poems, I opened the page, and it wasn't my poems at all. It was the Trinity College Fitness Centre class timetable. And so, I just had to start, like Zumba, 4:25, swimming. It was a poet's worst nightmare. So I double-checked today. So I've been in Ireland for about 5 years. And for half of that time, I lived in a very tiny one-room cabin down a dirt path at the very end of Braehead, which is a great novelty for someone that grew up 9 hours from the ocean on the side of a mountain. But it was just a tremendous experience. So this first poem is dedicated to that, and it's based on that, and it's called Late Night in a Cabin on the Head. This wedding cake was a waste of money, my mate says. Back in daily life, after the big event, he hacked me off a slice and wrapped it. Now the moon's pale glare is pooling on the floor of this room that smells of old dinner. My own small chaos of noise, the only thing rearranging the stifling air. I leave it to sit on the steps before the oxygen rush of the distant sea. It's freezing. And that second step is useless. I swear to God, I'm going to break my ankle some morning. But just now, it's holding strong. And I'm loving that waste of money now. Forked out of this dry husk of foil, the white ganache stiff at the edges, watching the moon's milky reflection, a wavering slick on the sea. My breath in the cold is a lid off a pot on the boil, the steam rising into the endless air. It's easy to begin thinking there is no one in the world to witness this but me. That everyone I ever gave my heart needed me until they didn't. That there's nothing moving anywhere at all right now but the sea and me. But sitting hunched against the cold with a mouthful of sweetness and shivering, that moon and its reflection.
So just off the Wexford to Dublin road, British Bay in County Wicklow is where the next poem is set, early one morning. The year is 2002, when the Celtic Tiger was still very much on the rampage. A stop en route to the city. Colours were subdued that September morning, as though it was still the moon and not the sun behind the cloud. Every shape seemed pure, every surface oddly smooth. A yacht far off on the horizon looked static, ink-drawn. The inshore sea was glassy, its waves orderly in parallel lines, their lazy rhythm the only sound. When I neared the water's edge, I saw it all. In my mind's eye, a feeding frenzy, not long since. And before me, all along the wetted strip, stretching as far as the eye could see, the gleaming forms of sprats or fry, countless, motionless on the hard sand, with here and there a mackerel, tiger-striped, mouth agape, Gulliver-sized among them, and within each rising wave, glinting like coins and dispersing slowly, millions of scales.
You stare at me from there, your body like a grave. My mind is parched, my heart is what your body craves. And in your eyes survives the flotsam from the storm. When will you realize your love is like a swarm of bees? And though we knew it would burn to death, all
This poem is about a fish, the fish I aim to catch. The elusive fish. When the fisherman opened his long poacher's coat a short distance from the sea and laid the elusive fish, flesh pink on moss green, on the mossy banks at the foot of Ben Bulben, I asked him 3 questions. Where did you catch this fish? What lure did you use to hook it? What net did you use to land it? With no answers, I walked away that spring morning as bunched clouds went galloping across a blue sky towards a trumpet sun, and swimming along the bottomless ocean of the mind was the fish, flesh pink on moss green. Later that day, I rowed out from Ross's Point in a small boat until I could no longer see the pleated ridgehead of Ben Bulben, till the horizon was brimming with rippling water flashing in the sunlight like crumpled tinfoil. I laid the oars down and jumped into the water, the light in my head still shimmering as I sank under the lullaby of the tides to and fro. And I drifted down into the dreaming void of the sea, past the slow sinking shipwrecks of ex-lovers and the floating unopened treasure chests of unlived dreams. As I sink into the sleepless vacuum of the deep sombre hunger, sharks of guilt hauntingly come into being, their prowling screams echoing through the hollow dark. I drift further down into my own vast emptiness, my driftwood fingers reaching out for the fossils of the dead, the fleurs of lost memory, grasping to be remembered, glaring like lit mercury on the seabed of the mind. Then all goes quiet, as though I have looked into a cave of silence that had been waiting to be listened to. And in there I see it, moving through what darkness sees and what silence hears, the fish, flesh pink on moss green. But as I drew near to touch it, the fish turned, as though its photograph had been taken and had vanished, leaving behind the vivid presence of absence. I have tried again and again, but still I stand here today on the mossy banks at the foot of Ben Bulben, yet now with only 2 questions to ask the fisherman. What lure did you use to hook it? What net did you use to land it?
So, an tarnici an atá chun léamh nocht an dáin seo by an dáin seo an chiad dáin dom héin a fáil síoch. The next poem I'm going to read is the first poem of mine that was published. Those of you who have German in the house, and I know there are a few of you, will recognise the title because I did happen to steal it off a 19th century German poet. So the title of the poem is Am Fenster ich einsam stand. At the window I stood alone. Chnoch gemach eilecht na híthe, gan duine bith I mochir, an chléig teach den nuas ó hléitsimh chiloantáin. Bí ban rialta an arige, I as a meawr gan dí, ag rich chun na mór tíre, faoi grás faoi arag, creidjih úr sealbhathe aci. Bar meisce na crín, iad gíri dolhile ach cailse, aspa tuisce na le léamh sna súile dáilta. Airíam mas mo leabi, dí chordach dig dul tre magana, nar dhéanas jarúd an in yoga rúna.
There was a 2-degree rise in temperature 5,000 years ago. As a result, a blanket of peat formed over the Neolithic farming settlement in Cade Fields in North Mayo. Sometimes looking back can show us what lies ahead if we don't pay attention to the signs. The inkling to the lost Neolithic farm woman of Cade Fields. That first time it breathed a sigh on your neck Why did you brush it aside? You should have taken it into your head. There was still time to build it a shrine, offer crowberry prayers, and top of the milk. White breath hung over the cattle pens. You carried on felling and burning, spread baskets of kelp and sand on the land. The inkling shivered your spine. Did it come from the ocean? It lurked in the mizzle, blackened the hose, wormed down to your worry bone. Years have gone by. The cradles lie empty. Summer is wetter than winter. Rain drenches the land. It quenches the sky. You break the skin on the earth with your schlán, drive the blade deep with your foot. Bog water wells from the wound. Grass lies down in the fields and drowns. Cattle bawl their hunger pains. There is only one child in the house. You can't shake the inkling. It niggles, raises the back of your hair, sly and fat as a tick. Barley decays in the ground. The cow is near dry. You must choose between calf and child. It is out of your hands.